Hello everybody, John here, and today on To The Garage I'm looking slightly dubbed because of a bit of a sound failure. So we're looking today at the Autosleeper Trophy called Betsy. And a few have commented that we've had this vehicle on the fleet for quite some time now, and yet never really given a tour or a review of it. It's been involved in a few little improvement videos. But what's it about? What's it like inside? What makes it tick? What's the Volkswagen element like? So we thought we'd take this opportunity to give you a little review. Even if you're not into Volkswagen vans, this one might interest you. So fascinating as the Autosleeper Trophy conversion is, we'll start with the T4-ness of this. So this is a Volkswagen T4 or Transporter 4 that was preceded by the classic VW camper vans, so the split screen T1, the T2, which is known as a bay window, and the T25 or Vanagon or T3, dependent where you are in the world, which was the last of the classic rear-engined and air-cooled Volkswagen vans. The later ones had water cooling. And then T4 emerged as a very traditional looking van with a front engine front wheel drive layout. So Volkswagen knew they had to offer their fans something that was a little different, a little quirky. So the T4 is a little narrower, a little bit more car-like than maybe the Transit of its era. And they also offered an unusual engine range. This launch engine is the 2.4 litre straight 5 slant 5 diesel, and its original fitment was to the Audi 100. So to have a 5-cylinder diesel engine was quite unusual. The exhaust ports and intake ports are on the back, so the engine has to be tilted forward to be able to get them tucked in and underneath the van. Quite an unusual install. This is something that produces 73 horsepower, is not turbocharged, so these are not quick or lively vehicles. They keep up with traffic, there's no problem, they cruise down a motorway with no issues whatsoever, but you're not going to be winning any races. Overall, these motors have a really good reputation for reliability. Only really thrashed examples, maybe giving the odd head gasket issue, but in general, very reliable. VW pushed the wheels right out to the edges of the vehicle and retained the torsion bar suspension at the front end in order to give it a more compliant ride than most of their competitors too. So it retains something about it. It was unique. So let's move now on to the trophy conversion and what is so special about it. So as you can see, this appears to be a van conversion with no coach built element, but it does have an enormous rear overhang. And despite the styling integrating perfectly, the last metre of the van is entirely the work of Autosleeper. And that rear overhang is really quite unique. What's that all about? Volkswagen had not yet produced their long wheelbase van at the point in time when Autosleeper wanted to start modifying T4s. They knew that their customers would want a larger van than a small wheelbase, but not coach builds. And some of their clientele would not accept anything that was not Volkswagen. They were dedicated to the brand. So instead, they decided to create their own extension and a long wheelbase body on a short wheelbase platform. And such is the quality of this design and how well it's integrated into the van that most people don't recognise it as being coach built. The rear bodywork is fiberglass, but is supported by an enormous superstructure, space frame structure, integrating it into the original vehicle's bodywork. And this was so good and so effective that vehicles were tested by Volkswagen, and Autosleeper were given permission to market this as a new Volkswagen with their warranty. The cab of the Autosleeper with the T4 conversion is pretty much standard. They didn't really alter anything to make it into the Autosleeper. Really just the addition of captain seats or swivel seats with a little bit more padding and more camper van trim than there would have been on the originals. The T4 won all manner of awards for the design of its dashboard back when it was new, for being modern and being modular. And you know, at first glance it's very straightforward, what you'd expect of a Volkswagen Group commercial vehicle, but there's some cuteness to it. All of these lines everywhere on the dashboard mean that it's really easy to change the configuration to different trim levels, modify it for special purpose vehicles, you know, fire wagons, ambulances, police vans, etc, etc. Some of the vehicles, for instance, have got 2 vents like this one up here. Some have 2 vents and a digital display on this side. Some will have 3 vents. I like the look of the top of the dashboard. It's just something that amuses me as a cute piece of design. They've tried to get the steering wheel in a nice car-like position, but you know, tall dash and all the rest of it, you risk wrapping your knuckles on the overhang, so they cut it away to make it all work, and I really rather like that. We have a reasonably large glove box, narrow but very, very deep. Vents on the ends of the dash, speakers in the tops of the dash, big compartment to chuck your handbag or anything on there, an area here which really cries out for a rubber mat to stop things sliding around. At the bottom here we have a 4-position fan. Note the T4 shaped little icon here which illuminates, and a little icon up here is quite cute. Just going to bring it in for you, and for me is reminiscent of the very confusing heater controls that you get on T2s. So somebody's had to give us a clue as to optimum for defrosting the screen, and that will be top left over to the right, next one over to the right, and the one at the bottom over to the right, and that's the clue for maximum defrost, and I think that's quite cute. We've got this very Volkswagen hazard warning system with the big glassy hazard warning in the top of the column, and it does look a little bit after 40. I've got no idea why they choose to print the model number of the switch on it. Very commercial vehicle, I guess, but actually as a functional piece of design that is quite brilliant, because it's always in your line of sight and you're not going to go, oh, where's my hazards, when you really need them. Over on the right hand side in our vehicle we have the 2-position headlight switch and a rheostat which allows you to change the brightness on the instruments. And in keeping up with the theme set on the T2, the bay window, basically it's a pointless exercise, because unless you've got the thing on full you can't tell that they're illuminated, exactly like a bay window. And below that, because we're a old school diesel, we have a lever which we can pull which aids cold start. Storage bins, and in the door pockets, keep fit windows, and an assortment of little extras that are obviously associated with curtains and bits and pieces like that, which you find in most camper conversions. So if I look up, you'll see we've got a curtain rail around our head, and the curtains, a nice nod, and particularly for a 1996 commercial vehicle, to Volkswagen trying to make their T4 more of a car with car-like features than some of the commercial vehicles of the time is we've got seatbelt height adjust, which not uncommon these days to have in a van, but was quite novel back then. We've got some nice Fat Bob's Emporium Volkswagen overmats in here, which are very, very plush, but it's well carpeted out anyway. It's got, relatively speaking, a completely flat floor. Just got this little bulge here to accommodate basically the exhaust system coming off the back of the engine, with this sort of footrest. Very, very spacious pedal box arrangement. The wheel arch does intrude, but everything seems to fall quite naturally, and there's no lack of space down there, and the seat adjusts well for larger drivers. Instrumentation is basic but more than adequate. So you've got engine temperature on the left, followed by the fuel. In the middle we have our speedo, British vehicle, therefore in mph, but it's got the kilometers per hour on there as well. You can see we've only done 73,000 miles from new, so we're quite a fresh vehicle. And on the right hand side we have our analog clock. Along the bottom there's LEDs which light up for the over temperature warning, oil, main beam, brake warning, which comes on with the handbrake in the ignition or problems with the brakes. We've got low battery or no charge, and we have a glow plug heater light as well. Despite the T4 getting various design awards for its dashboard, it does have a couple of small ergonomic issues. One is that the gear stick is just a little bit too short. Not that you can't reach it, but when you put it into the forward gears, it just makes you reach just a little bit too far to be comfortable. And we fitted this extension, which is a very, very typical mod on these vans, that brings it up by 3 inches, and it also cranks it forward and over towards the driver, just meaning that the changes are actually in a really nice place and you don't have to pull your shoulders off the seat. Another one that we haven't resolved but is equally part of the same ergonomics package, which is not perfect, is the handbrake. And the handbrake is just a tad too low. Basically this is in the on position, and with these seats, which are a fraction better padded than the standard, yeah, you can get your hand around that, that's okay. But if you want to grab it from the off position, then you're practically climbing out of your seat and leaning right over to reach it. It's a long way down. Small thing, and I think can be addressed. Something I want to look at is picking it up on a bit of a plinth and looking at the mechanism to do that. But yeah, just a niggle more than it is a real big fault. Okay, so let's turn our attention to the camper element, the interior of the Trophy. So less T4, more Autosleeper at the back. And with Autosleeper, you always get a very good quality of interior trim to match the quite well designed exterior. And yeah, it's certainly not been done by halves. It's not opulent, but it's properly screwed together, unlike some conversions. All this is the original seat trim, and it's worn quite well. First of all, opposite the door we have a sofa, which would easily accommodate 3 people who go along quite nicely, and has seat belts only in the front position as standard. So there is a static strap that comes out of here. One of the mods I've already done is to fit an inertia reel at the rear of the sofa. The mounting points were still there from the original van, which is a case of finding them and fitting an inertia reel here, and then bolting the inertia itself into the chassis below the seat box. So that's made quite a good additional feature, and obviously I can tuck the seatbelt behind the cushion if I want. And as standard, the forward facing seat has again a inertia reel belt, which is what gave me the clue that the original mounting points would still be intact on the opposite side. Beneath the seat you have these fiberglass cupboard fronts, door fronts, with pop out buttons and quite decent storage space. Originally, although missing from our vehicle, there would be a wire mesh basket that could be drawn out like a drawer to make loading that space a little easier. But obviously then you reduce the amount of space you've got, so swings and roundabouts, whether that's a bonus or not. Similar compartment on the opposite side is where I'm keeping things like tow ropes and bits and bobs of tools, etc. And that one's smaller because to the right hand side you've got these ducts, the intake and outlet for the heater system. I control up this side, which gives you a blown air heating system. It uses the gas to light a flame, and then you can use the fan to blow the heat around, thermostatically controlled, or you can just run the fan and blow cooler or at least ambient temperature air around inside the vehicle. The blank space between those two doors looks like why they made the right hand door a little wider, and that's because it's got a water heater in there. That's gas and 240 water heater, a Carver Cascade 2, and that's the control system for that mounted up there. We'll use this high level window as an example of all of the windows. So double glazed throughout, so your only non-double glazed windows in the van are the van windows at the front. So we can pop those two little catches, push it out, lock into position. There's a light tint to the glass, and they're all cassette framed, allowing you to basically lift the blind into position, whoops, or pull down fly screens or a net curtain, depending on how you like to think about these things. There we go. If we squeeze that, that allows you to lift, and now you've got blackout blinds in a cassette. Very effective, very neat, and take up a lot less space than having curtains everywhere. There we go. And they're on all of the windows in the van. Up front, we've got these little lockers that were originally set out as little wine cupboards with bottle holders, and on the opposite side glass holders. So somewhere to keep my binoculars at the moment. Gas strut on that. Gas strut on that. We're keeping some extra cushions and pillows, but there's a reasonable size overcab. Not big, but big enough to put your hold all for your overnight stuff. And another little cupboard on this side. And again, all really well trimmed. On both sides, you've got these nice, what would you call it? Shelf ledges? Don't know. Very convenient, and we've got the clips up here to hold the leg of our table. If we move into the kitchen area, then we've got cupboards above. Again, really well trimmed out, quite shallow, but lipped fronts, nothing much is going to be rattling. Nice catches, nice locks. Drop down, and here we see the beginnings of how much effort went into making this vehicle a really substantially altered vehicle. It looks so much like a standard van from the outside, but this is part of the chassis. This is bolted to basically the roof of the original van, runs back up through this cupboard, through the back there, and cantilevers the whole back of the van, so that at no point are you ever worried that the back's going to sag because it's non-standard. So on this side we have our cooker. It's a Voyager 2000, and we have the hob with fold up deflectors, 2-burner. We have a grill. We also have an oven. So again, setting it a little bit above the average van conversion, moving it towards coach built when it's neither. And down this side we have a drawer, which we're using for cutlery. We have another drawer, odds and sods. And at the bottom we have a very useful pantry cupboard, nice and deep. One under the oven, which you can use for pots and pans, but also contains all of the gas lock-offs for the fridge, the oven, the hob, the water heater, the blown air heat, etc, etc. Move over onto the other side of the van. Similar cupboards up above, marginally deeper on this side, and we've got a lift up section of work surface which reveals the sink and drainer. Interestingly, they're separate units. It's not one piece, which would be the way things are done these days. The drainer has a plug hole in it. Below we have a pretty large, by campervan standards, Electrolux fridge, and this is a 3-way, so we've got 12 volt, 240 volt and gas operation available to us, and that's a very nice size. You drop down below the fridge and we have a mains outlet, and this small cupboard, which, as well as housing our brushes etc, also houses the charging system for the batteries. To the right of the fridge, another decent sized cupboard at the top, shallower at the bottom, as it's got a false back in it, but it's also got the RCDs. And a small cupboard here, because of the sink bowl. Carrying on our journey backwards, up here we have the Zig unit, which has got the tank water level. We've got onboard both freshwater and grey water tanks, but we can only read the level in the freshwater tank. Isolation for the 12 volt system, and the pump pressurizes the tank rather than pumping water out of the tap. So when you turn that on, whoops, you tend to hear the pump in the background pressurizing the tank, and then you've got instant water. Then we come to the van sort of party piece, which is the extra meter on the back. It's got a bulkhead here. The original van stops around about there. We've got this pocket door, which basically you just release a little catch, and the doors shut from both sides, allowing you to make it an entirely separate compartment. And in here we have our sort of shower room, toilet, extra storage space in our case. All set up to be a wet room, so the doors are fiberglass. If we go into the top, this is rather untrimmed and nasty at the moment because I've been doing some work in here, but it also helps show again this very special construction. That pipe is part of the superstructure at the back of the van. There is a very decent sized wardrobe, which again has a fiberglass door with a rubber seal, enabling it to keep everything nice and dry and clean. And then below that we have another cupboard which is sealed off and has vents in the bottom, which is carrying 2 LPG bottles, access to the tail lights, and has also got the jack in there in case of emergencies. And the base of this cupboard, like in a lot of larger vans, is a shower tray, but it does have a little bespoke piece of mat in there so that you can use it barefoot a little bit more comfortably. And we have a nice Thetford cassette toilet system, fully built in and integrated with electric flush, toilet roll holder, waste tank level indicator. Really good. Again, same sort of pocket cassette windows with blind and curtain. We've got a little shower curtain to keep the water off of there. We have a drop down on this side. Oops. Sink. No drain hole. Basically you tilt it and it tips the water away down a chute at the back. Hot and cold supply again. Hot and cold supply to a shower head. And we've got a soap dispenser there, mirror at the back, lights up above. So you really are self-contained in this van, even though it is practically van sized. It's not coach built. Really nifty. Nice feature with the shower is you lift the shower head off. Even though you've got the taps turned on, it only operates when you press the button, or you can lock the button into position. And this can be hung on the rear window, which folds up and out. And when you stand behind the van, this window is well above head height, meaning you've got an outdoor shower area if you want to wash off out there. We've got skylights with vents up above, wants a good clean. One and another one in the main part of the van. This little area down here is actually a really large storage area, but very unusually it doesn't have any hinges. It just has two panel locks, and we're keeping our toilet rolls and bits and bobs in there, but it also has a false floor you can lift up for access to the wiring for the tail lights and getting at the rest of the chassis if it needs any maintenance. So that gives you a good overview of the features of the van and a little look at the layout. So where's the compromises in this thing? Because at the moment I'm painting a picture like, why would anybody buy any other conversion? First one is, for a high top, it's a little down on storage space. So we've got our seats there, an umbrella, just tied up in a corner of the shower room. No real issue. But in previous high top vans, you've typically got the pull out boards for a temporary bed. And as we don't have that in this layout, there's not a lot of upstairs storage for bulkier things. Things like if you want to take a duvet with you or your sleeping bags. We've got that small area over the cab, and we've got areas under the seats on both sides. We also have the wardrobe at the back. So it's a little down on storage space, in my opinion. As long as you're neat and travel light, you're all good. The next one, although clever, I think is probably the biggest failing in this conversion, and that is the seating converting to the bedroom arrangement. So what this van does is it offers either a single bed, which is achieved by pushing the driver's seat all the way forward, taking this cushion and dropping it into the gap that's achieved between here and the back of the now pushed forward driver's seat. And then you either have a narrow single here, or using a nice, again very elegant system. Yeah, so you move the little catch there, and in doing so you're enabled to slide, and it's on runners, so I'm not just dragging this thing, that forward, two different positions. It locks there, making a nice wider single. So drop that down, or you can pull it further still. If I find the catch again, there it is, further still, and it comes right over to meet with this chair, and then you drop that down, and with this forward you've got a very large single. So, very cute. If you would like to make a double, then you basically do the same with the passenger seat. Push that all the way forward. The single forward facing seat has a catch at the front here, enabling it to slide forward like so, making some sort of chaise lounge looking arrangement. But you can drop that down there, and then with this pushed right forward, this comes up, drops onto a little corner piece, and you drop in 2 extra cushions. The extra cushions are in that cupboard down there. Again, sort of compromising the storage facilities in the van, because that'd be useful extra storage for your clothes maybe. Let's pop the seatbelt in there. And as a double, with this pulled out like that and this one pulled across, you end up with a very large double bed area that nobody's going to have any complaints about whatsoever. But it is a bit of a faff to put together, and I think is a little bit of a compromise. This is a van we don't use all the time for camping. It's an occasional camper. It's more of a day van 90% of the time, so it's not much of an issue, and I intend to use it a lot more this season for some of my travel for work, and so the single is pretty easy to pull together. It's not really an issue, but it is something worth considering when you're looking at these vans. While I got this seat down and flat, you can see we have a pocket there. That's to accommodate the base of a small table, which locks into position here. The table's out at the moment. I'm using it for something on another project, just for measurements. But that's where one table lives, and there is a second table down the back of this, which is much larger, and we have the normal Fiamma post holes, whoops, there we go, in the floor, enabling us to use either of those 2 tables on a single leg. There should, although we haven't got it, be a cranked table leg which is fitted to this unusual looking arrangement by the side of the seat, and that should enable you to swing the table outside through the open door and use it outside as well. So that's something I've got to address. So as you can see, it's a clever conversion, but I do think a little compromised in terms of its practicality if you want plenty of storage space inside, or to be able to put the bed together very quickly. In both of those cases, it's less than perfect. However, you have to balance that with the fact that this is a van set up right from moment one as a 2-person van, and you've got to say, as 2-people van goes, it's very spacious, it's very comfortable, it's very well equipped. And for a vehicle that's not overly large physically externally, you do have the full-on toilet, the washroom with shower arrangement, which is lacking from most of the smaller conversions. So there we are. That is our 1996 Volkswagen T4 based Trophy. I'm very pleased with it. I think its uniqueness as a layout and the way it works gives me plenty of reasons to smile, and its compromises, based on there only really being myself, Joe and the dog using it, are completely livable. I also like the fact that it is so OTT in its engineering, so that cantilevered sub chassis to hold up the extra meter,
great. I actually like the look of the van. The rear really does look like Volkswagen intended it to be there, and I do like the fact that it's narrow at the back. When you look at it, it's got an element of sort of streamlining look to it. Other clues as to the over engineering, completely superfluous in my opinion. The forward facing seat in the rear is on runners sideways for no reason, because you don't need it for the bed, no reason other than to move that seat 10 inches away from the window for forward travel, so that you can see down the middle and feel a little bit more included. So yeah, I'm very pleased with it, and I do enjoy driving this vehicle. It's quite a relaxed drive, reasonably car-like. As taller vehicles do tend to roll, you're not going to be throwing it into the bends. You know, there's a lot of wood in here, there's a lot of weight in here. Not too difficult to park. The turning circle is excellent because it's short wheelbase. And the fact that you've got a rear overhang, as long as you're aware of that, you can park the rear over things because it's well and truly above curb level. And the rear window is actually usable whilst you're driving to see out of. So there's a lot of good features there. Things for me to do on this van: cosmetics. It's got a few little scabs and scars that I still need to address. I need to find parts and rebuild this swing out table arrangement. I really like that idea, so I want it, even though it was missing from the van. I do want to address the low handbrake position, because the engineer in me will find it interesting to do rather than I really need to do it. I need to get it out on a few more adventures to sort of learn a few more of its foibles. The Carver water heater, the Cascade 2, the burner is shot, so that can only run on 240 at the moment. So I either need to change the whole unit out or repair the burner element. Not sure which way I'm going to go with that. The engine compartment wants a good degree of detailing. I'm still working on servicing everything, changing belts, etc. I want to get it on my ramp, lift it up and start looking at underneath, looking at bushes and bits and pieces like that, and basically getting rid of a little bit of the sway, combined with changing the wheels from 15-inch steelies, which we've got at the moment, to, I'm not going to go daft, probably 17-inch alloy wheels. And not quite decided what I'm going for yet. I think I do, but that'll lower the profile on the tyres just slightly and give us a slightly improved cornering ability. Other than that, I'm really happy with it. I will carry on tinkering and find the little faults and improving it and customizing it to be more me, but we've got a pretty sound van. Hopefully you want to watch a few more videos on Betsy, which is what this little vehicle's called, or Olive, who's a T2 or bay window camper that is undergoing a complete interior restoration at the moment, or Purdy, the XK8, that is a long-term project, not because she's got lots of problems, but because I'm completely enamoured of XK8s. And we got a Jeep Cherokee, which is a relatively modern vehicle, but very interesting, and we're going to get into learning more about that quite soon. Always playing around in the garage, and if you like that sort of thing too, then please consider subscribing, join in. Great commentary tends to go on below these videos. Get involved with your fellow subscribers, and we answer each other's questions and generally have a fun time. So from me, John, on to the garage. See you again soon.